how the 2020 quarantine and lockdown has influenced the Manosphere and just society in general. So this year's been very interesting with the quarantine and the lockdown and people losing jobs and just kind of the world being in a very crazy place at the moment. And when you add into the mix the growing number of people who are aware of concepts like MGTOW or the red pill or hypergamy and terms like Chad and Tyrone and incels, people are waking up more to these concepts of just self-identity and spiritual aspects of like who people are and why we make the choices we do, why certain people pair up, men and women, and the dynamics of that. And so in this information age, there's a lot more available to people to understand what they're doing in life. So what I mean by that is you can take something like the 1930s, like the Great Depression or something. And back then there's no internet, there's no TV. But see, if you're in the Great Depression and you lose your job for whatever reason, that could put a strain on your family, financially, emotionally. And so maybe the marriage starts to have problems and, maybe they get a divorce or whatever. Not that divorce was as common back then that it is now, but I'm just saying, like, when financial hardship comes to a family or a couple, it can definitely put a strain on the relationship and the family. But back in the 1930s, with something like the Great Depression, you don't have like the internet and the things that we do now for more information. So you're kind of just going off of what's around you. There's not even TV at that point, right? So you're just kind of going off of what you're hearing in your community. So you could be this person in the Great Depression in this small town where everyone around you gets married because that's what's being pushed. And so you growing up, you just get married yourself because you're not just going to be like the off person. So you just, find a wife, or if you're a woman, you find a husband and you just get married. And there wasn't as much of a discussion back then because, there's no TV, no internet, no phones. So you're living in the moment as like a human being with what's around you and what you think reality is. And so you don't understand these concepts like people being more attracted to like other people who aren't their spouse. And even though that's always been there in human nature, like the fact that it's more readily available now in the social media era, people are able to see things. So like we can go and read stories about men that have gone through divorce and divorce court. And so as a young man myself in 2020, I can take note of that and I can really learn the court system and marriage and all that. And I can really shape my view on whether I want to get married or not. And I don't. I definitely want to stay single and not get the government involved in what I'm doing. But I'm saying with things like the Great Depression or any economic hardship that can kind of expose certain things, even like the 2008 crash, like the market crash, or like someone loses their house or whatever, they can't afford mortgage. Even in 2008, that's just like a year where people are just starting to know what Facebook is, right? Like if you're a kid in school in 2008, like I was, 2008 is, I graduated 8th grade in June of 2008. So like then as a kid, like if you like had a cell phone in 2008, that was still like a privilege, like it's like, oh, like you got your cell phone in 8th grade or 7th grade or whatever in 2008, and it's like, oh, like wow, like because not every single kid was given a cell phone, or if they did, it was like the flip phone. And even before my time as, a 26-year-old, the first people had the basic, you had to press the buttons 3 times, like A, B, C, D, E, F kind of thing. And so it's like a different time now in 2020 where it's just like it's expected. If you're just like a 5th grader, you got like an iPhone that can do anything. And so there's all this information out there. So I can read more stories about marriage. I can read more stories about stuff that other people have gone through and see different perspectives from different angles. And so when the Manosphere grows and we're able to attach labels to things like MGTOW, red pill, a Chad, a Tyrone, concepts of the alpha male and the beta male and how that applies, knowing someone's an incel, or however we want to define certain terms. We can now, at this point in time, like a guy that feels he's an incel, say he's like short, like 5'2", not very attractive, not very confident, doesn't have much money, and so he's involuntary celibate. Like women aren't attracted to him, so he's in that group of incels and how they label that. But we can take that not as like a disrespectful attack on him as a human being, but we can use this information to explain to the guy, hey, if you believe you're an incel and you've classified yourself that way, don't get yourself into a situation where maybe you go through your 20s with no attention from women at all, or they just they make fun of you, or they use you, or they just completely ignore you. As an incel, don't go through your 20s working your way up. Maybe you're just like a shy little accountant or something, and then at 30, your accounting career, you get like promoted, or you work up and now you're making a bunch of money. We can explain these concepts of like, dude, don't get yourself into a situation of being the beta male provider. We have these terms that we can like really give people information on. It's like, dude, don't just because you have money now, if you were ignored your entire 20s, don't turn 30 and then just because you have money, don't fall into the real man would get married kind of thing, or a girl that's been giving away for free and now you're the bad guy if you're not taking her out on expensive dates and she's not even going to give you a kiss on the cheek or anything. Like, we can explain this to these incel guys, and so they don't have to get used and get their money taken from them and just get thrown through the ringer of things. And so in this information age, you can understand things about yourself in terms of like being a Chad or a Tyrone or an incel, or red pill concepts, blue pill, hypergamy, where you stand like 1 through 10 on a scale to somebody, or to that person you're this and to that person you're something else. So the information age has definitely heightened that. So when we go through certain periods like this in history, like whether it's the Great Depression or like the 2008 crash, or the 2020 quarantine and the lockdown, there's different phases of like how society is. So like internet and technology, TVs, phones, that's different from the 1930s to 2008 to 2020. In 2020, it's such a different time for information that you can see someone now in 2020 where they might have lost their job this year, and then say the marriage goes into like a hardship, and so then the woman divorces, right? Or she sees another guy that's in a better position, and so she goes with a different guy. And so now this guy that just got divorced, he's in divorce court getting his stuff taken from him after losing his job. And we're able to see more cases of this, and it sends the signal to other guys, like younger guys or guys who aren't married, like, whoa, this is what happened to this person. And so that's why you see this rise of like MGTOW and red pill and just awareness in general. So it specifically this year in the lockdown and the quarantine, it's really and when you couple that with the growth of certain communities like MGTOW and red pill and these terms Chad and Tyrone, people are waking up to different ways of thinking about how they're going to play their life. So people don't want to get stuck into something where the government just dictates your sex life or your marriage. They don't want to get into a position where they're just like the beta provider, like I'm just like your resource until you get you're tired of me, because of now with like feminism and you can do whatever you want, you can sleep with whoever and no consequence divorce. So like, it's like, yeah, you have the freedom as a human being, as a woman, to sleep with whoever and do whatever, but I can look now in 2020, it's not like 1930s where everyone around me is just getting married and that's just what I know. There's no other like information for like a thought process on it, so you're just kind of geared, like you look like the weird guy if you're not getting married. Even in like 2008, like the information wasn't like it is in 2020, so like even in 2008 still kind of look like the weird guy if you're not looking for marriage or whatever. But now in 2020, people just kind of understand it a little more, right? And people are less judgmental of like, hey, like let's actually understand what we're doing in life, like what something is taking from somebody and what it's giving to somebody. So a lot of people too, like you get that one person that might say, well, my marriage lasted forever and neither of us cheated, and marriage is great, you just need to find the right person. But a lot of these people too, like if stuff is circumstantial. So like say you're like a white couple that came from a middle class or an upper class background, and so your family's always had money, white picket fence, 2-car garage, everything. um it's like easier for you to like stay together when like the money is there, right? And like it wasn't testing your relationship in any way. Or like you get like a pro athlete or something, like Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback, Kansas City Chiefs. Him and his girlfriend, I think her name's Brittany. It's kind of like, they're the high school couple and everything, and they're together from high school, to his career now, and getting married and having a kid and all that. I don't know them personally, obviously, or anything, but I'm just saying, like, people look at something like that and like, oh, like, look at this couple, like, but it's like, well, he's like, he's in the NFL, he's making millions of dollars. It's not a knock on her or on him, but I'm just saying, like, it's easier for things to stay together when the money's there. And like, because we're trying to survive out here, right? Food and shelter is very important. So like, not a knock on her, but there's no reason for her to leave that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no real reason for her to leave that. So when people like point at one couple and like, oh, look at like they lasted and neither of them cheated. But it's like, you go to a like a low income neighborhood, like the hood or something. Like people, like what's marriage in the hood when people are trying to like scrap for food, right? Like, and it's not a black thing, it's not a white thing. It's just like human nature. Like, if you're in a society where everyone is struggling for food, you're going to see like that people aren't just like faithful to each other, right? You're going to see that like there's more going on than just like we fell in love as kids and grew old together and lived happily ever after. Like, it's a little bit easier when the money is there, the health is there, the looks are there, the circumstance around you to just facilitate that. Like, like if I win the lottery right now and I just like go to some private island to just chill and I decide to get married, there's plenty of women that would want to marry a lottery winner. And even if we grow old together and neither of us cheat or there's no problems, it's way easier to facilitate that when I just won the lottery, right? It's just because the relationship's not put to the test in certain ways. So that's what I'm saying with this 2020 quarantine and the lockdown. When we're hit with certain times where people are losing their jobs and things are hard for people, you really see what people are made of and what human nature actually is. So who's to say that a guy and a girl don't go into a marriage and the guy was making 6 figures and then in this 2020 quarantine, this lockdown, he loses his job and they go down to like a poverty level. And so in her eyes, that's not the alpha she married, right? You're not the guy I thought you were. Or, it's not a thing against women, like guys too, like you're not the girl I thought you were, but I'm just saying in the way it usually plays out where the girl's gonna want the guy that makes more money, that like provides, just male-female interaction, that's just generally how it's gonna go. In general, like in something like 2020, so he's down to this poverty level, right? From being a 6-figure earner. Who's to say that, like, she just decides, like, why would she want to struggle financially and have this, like, stressed relationship when she could just go right now and meet another guy? Maybe he's just, like, owned a real estate through his family for generations. So he just lives residually off of, like, rent money. So you just get this dude that might be similar to her husband in a few ways, but he's living chill, right? Like, even with the quarantine and the shutdown, he's just like, he has all this like rent money residually, or he has money in the bank from previous years. And so he starts looking like a more comfortable option because her current husband, if they're struggling for bills and food, there's no consequence divorce. You could just divorce him and go with the other guy. And so like when this stuff happens, we're able now in 2020, there's more information where we can put terms on things like, oh, Chad, Tyrone, alpha, beta, incels, hypergamy, the importance of money in sexual attraction, or looks, right? Things that like 100 years ago, I mean, it's still there, life is life, but it's not like as readily available. So like now when like a kid can go and search something online, he can get more perspectives than just his family. Whereas if this was 100 years ago in 1920, your existence and your identity is basically given to you by the people around you, right? If you're in the 1920s and you just grow up in a racist family with a racist neighborhood and a racist community, you're just gonna be that kid that grows up racist because you don't know anything else. But nowadays in 2020, you might still have a racist family, but that kid can take his iPhone and he goes and looks up like a song, and it's like a black artist, and they're just like, oh, like this song is awesome, or like he like watches sports and like, oh, like that athlete is cool, and I just watch his post-game interview and he just seems like a good guy, like what's with all this hate, right? So there's more perspectives out there, not just with like MGTOW or Red Pill, but just with everything. So 2020 has really affected the manosphere this way because we're able to see more perspectives on just a variety of issues. So we can look at things like marriage. We can see what the other guy is going through in divorce court. We can see things about ourselves in terms of our actual identity, in terms of like sexual market value, how women are perceiving us, hypergamy, and there's just more information to not only prevent your own mistakes, but others as well.